Once again, a nation once again. Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of our audio-visual podcast. My name's Fra Hughes. I have a blog, The Independent Activist, and this is Jared Denham, and Jared is the Activist Solidarity Network. We're going to talk about the end of Irish neutrality and the expansion of NATO into Ireland. And we're going to talk about the role that the Northern Ireland Assembly at Stormont, the regionally devolved government, is playing in the Israelis' continuing genocide in Gaza. So if we're going to start off with that, and Jared, do you want to chat about what's happening in Gaza and give us a wee bit of an update?
Yeah, so first off, the release of the captives from Gaza. We watched the release happened on Saturday. 3 people were released from Gaza. And first thing that jumped out at me was the coverage, BBC coverage, the general Western media coverage of the whole thing. You know, we've watched emaciated men walk out of Israeli detention consistently, women as well, you know, not able to tell the families, not able to recognize families, not able to recognize people, friends, you know. Well, it was never spoke about, it was bare silence. When it came to the Israeli captives that looked emaciated, because as you said, they were held in the north, they were jumping on it. It was a huge issue. It was a war crime. Even Netanyahu came out and said that this shows, quote unquote, this shows us how Hamas are monsters. You know, the gall of this man and the gall of these people to come out and speak like the whole of the 16 months prior had not happened is, I find it absolutely crazy.
What's part of the psychological propaganda war? What they're trying to say is, oh, it's the victim card again. Look at our prisoners. So they held back one of the Palestinian prisoner releases because they claimed that one of their hostages, in inverted commas, had been jostled by the crowd. The only people I saw was a scramble by the social media and the cameras of people in Gaza that wanted to photograph this particular Israeli soldier who had been detained in Gaza after Operation Al-Aqsa Flood.
Yeah.
And the reason why those guys were so emaciated is they starved the people in northern Gaza. So those guys were paying the price of the Israeli starvation policy in northern Gaza. And you can see the people all moving back home. You can see that the Israelis have withdrawn from that junction as part of the first 42 days of the ceasefire. So we've seen what they're doing. We've seen the genocide. We've seen the complicity from the American government, especially the Germans. They supply like 25% of all the Israeli arms that are used to murder the people in Gaza. But looking closer to home, there's been a bit of a, what would you call it, a bit of a public uproar about the potential role being played by the regionally devolved Stormont regime here in the north of Ireland. So do you want to give us a wee update on what's happening?
Yeah, so I recently published an article there on what's going on here in the industries, the arms industries. You know, a lot of work's been put in to uncover exactly what's been going on, and not by me, but by lots of people who have been uncovering this. But what's not been touched on is the overall strategy of the British government, not just the British government, the EU in their defence and security strategies, which seem, to me at least, to align consistently in the procurement process for NATO. So we've got the north. The north, we're being told, is a place of green pastures for business and multinational corporations from around the world. You know, and we're being told on the media it's tech, it's civil aviation,
it's high-paid skilled jobs.
High-paid skilled jobs, and net positive for the communities. You know, it's going to be something that's going to rejuvenate Belfast, lift Belfast off its knees. But throughout this last, 2 decades, what have we witnessed? The working class communities are on their knees. You know, we've witnessed the centre being rejuvenated, fair enough. But to what extent?
It's investment in hotels and tourism is the bonus of the peace process, but that means low-paid, minimum wage jobs for waiters and for people cleaning the hotel rooms, and the people making the money are the investors for the hotels. We have now got some 5-star hotels like the Merchant Hotel and the Grand Hotel and a few others where like Biden and Obama and Clinton have all stayed in Belfast. But a tourism boom does not equate with raising the kind of living conditions and economy of the working class people of Belfast, who make up the majority of the population.
100%. And the British government and Best NI, along the executive, basically Stormont, have been subsidising these companies who do come forth as the leading in civil engineers, civil aviation, cyber security, but it's very early to hear exactly what they're involved in. It's weapons manufacturing of components for weapons platforms, including the F-35, the F-16s. It's including state-of-the-art missile systems, platforms for anti-air platforms. You'd be amazed just how much is being done in the north.
In secret, in the background that we're all unaware of.
But it's funny because it's public, but it's public in such a way that it's fragmented, so much so that you have to go sifting through tons and tons of stuff to find what you're looking for. So you can go to the British...
It's hidden, they call it hidden in plain sight.
It's obfuscating the truth. That's exactly what it is. And you can go and look at the British defence and security strategy, industrial strategy, and it explains what it's visioning for the north of Ireland. It envisages an offshore base for industry, British industry, for the arms industry, and procurement of NATO weaponry. Now, everyone thought that Brexit, a bit of a wedge driven between EU and NATO and the UK. But when it really boils down to, the ruling class all have the ruling class in mind. It's not about what we see as theatre, really, in the background. They're all working together, and it can be seen in plain sight by their strategies. If we go,
politics is a form of entertainment. If you look at it as entertainment and not as political discourse that's meant to change policy and change society, then you can see what it really is. It's a pantomime.
And it's kind of like, I agree when people say this is the age of decadence. When I say the age of decadence, I mean, we're being look at this sports and drama and watch this, buy this. People are being bombarded left, right, and centre, while the ruling class are working in the background, completing their goals and completing an overarching plan and vision that they see for Europe, Ireland included. We constantly hear from the Irish government and officials down south that Ireland doesn't get any closer to NATO. But if we look at the actual reality, the new chief not the new chief, because he's been there since 2021 or 22, but chief of staff of Ireland is now going to take up a role in 2025 as the NATO chief, not NATO chief, but chief of staff. Not too sure which position it is, but it's going to be the first time that an Irish general or an Irish chief of staff will be taking that position. This all aligns with everything that they have planned out in the procurement process, including...
Well, if we look at what's happening, right? Ireland has been under British occupation for 800 years. We know all about colonisation, brutality, starvation, murder, imprisonment. As an oppressed people, the Irish should never get involved in oppressing other people anywhere in the world, especially under the umbrella of NATO. So the people of Ireland are proud of their neutrality and are determined to keep it. It's the government. It's those in charge. It's the Irish oligarchs, if we want to start using that phrase, and the landlords and the business people that want to bring Ireland away from its neutrality thing. Now they're pushing this thing. They've been doing it for a decade. Well, Ireland can't protect itself. Ireland's just a wee small island. We've only got, 30,000. I doubt we even have 30,000 troops. But we've got a very, very, very small Irish defence force. But it's a defence force. It's not an offence force. It's not to go around. But in UNIFIL, they have a role within the United Nations peacekeeping. But they're pushing this idea of, we can't rely on Britain to protect us. And when it comes down to NATO, they've actually been pushing at one stage, people in Europe were talking about having their own European army. NATO is basically
spoke about it a lot.
NATO's under the tutelage of the Americans.
Yeah.
They want everyone to have 5% of their GDP to go towards the war industry. And this is for attacking Russia and stuff going forward. So we were talking earlier about how maybe you mentioned the amount of money that's now being poured into the Irish war industry, not for necessarily exporting weapons of war, but to build up an Irish army and an Irish navy and an Irish air force that would be in line with maybe joining NATO, because countries that want to join the EU have to meet certain parameters before their entry. So if the Irish government is pushing this EU army, which would be separate from NATO, or potentially joining NATO, they would have to build up their kind of reservoir of stock and men and training. And like, I'm against the loss of Irish neutrality, because Irish 100%. People should never go and bomb other oppressed people anywhere in the world.
It's a principled stand. It's something that the Irish people hold dear, and we should hold dear. You know, as you said, we've struggled against colonial powers for generations, hundreds of years. We faced the imperialist wrath of the British. For what? What was the struggle for? This is what I sat back and wondered, you know, all those men and women who give their lives in the fight for Irish independence, for Irish sovereignty, for a socialist republic. Yet we fast forward to the day and we have their so-called comrades sitting in power, fully backing the funding and investing of these companies, imperialist companies, who are there to provide weapons to the foremost imperialist powers in the world. It's beyond my imagination. It's scary to me, because, you know, years ago, maybe it's an idealistic view, I seen Ireland, you know, no way that Ireland could be used as some sort of hub, because it's just, you know, it's the people here just wouldn't put up with it. But slowly we're watching the pacification of the Irish nation. It's a, if it's not apathy, it's a willingness to want to join NATO. It's people are actually...
They're creating this consensus for people to think that's a good idea.
As Noam Chomsky put it, the manufacturing consent, it's all part of the game. It's all part of the game. I don't see it as a game, but a lot of them people really do. It's like a game to try, and they even when they speak about it, how they're going to develop their people in the Irish government strategy, industrial strategy, and their industrial strategy aligns with the British industrial strategy and the EU's overall industrial strategy for defence and security. So what you said about, so they're going to build up the defence forces to, you know, and I can see it in future at some stage, Ireland being ready to join, to then ascend into the NATO alliance. Ireland joined, signed an agreement with NATO. I'm not too sure, I forget the year, but they signed the individual tailored partnership agreement that made sure that they were brought closer in alignment with the NATO procurement strategy, the NATO ideas, and what NATO had envisaged for the security of the European continent. Because what they seen was Ireland as a strategic place on the west flank of Europe. They wanted, and they need some sort of defence, you know, from the threats from Russia. They claim Russia is a threat to Ireland. They claim Iran is now a threat to Ireland. This stuff is wild. It is wild. But again, we come back to Stormont and people investing in these companies. There's been private members' motions passed in Stormont, fully outlining the industry, fully outlining the defence, the plan for defence in the sectors here. But, you know, there hasn't been a peep. I haven't heard nothing from any of the representatives, any of the parties about these.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin was the political wing of the armed militant Provisional Irish Republican Army, right? So they were once upon a time a revolutionary cadre of people who talked about a socialist republic. Yeah. They have now morphed into constitutional nationalists. They don't talk about socialism.
Yeah.
They're only interested in big business. They're interested in centrist politics in order to get themselves elected. Now, I'm going to go back to when Caterpillar came to West Belfast. Caterpillar came to West Belfast. John Herson, myself, and a few others went up to have a bit of a protest because obviously Caterpillar machines are used by the Israeli army to destroy Palestinian homes. You can now see them destroying all the infrastructure in and around Jenin and Tulkarm, where they're like digging up the roads and stuff. And when Paul Maskey, from memory, I could be wrong, when he was asked, why in West Belfast are we welcoming a company that is involved in the oppression of the Palestinian people? He said, well, sure, the people in West Belfast need jobs. So if you extrapolate that, then making bombs, if you're getting a good job and a good wage and you're making bombs that are going to be used in the Ukraine or in Palestine or in Yemen or in Syria and previously in Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya, that's okay because you're not dropping them. You're not making the political decision to murder people. You just have a job. If people use the bombs that you make, that's completely separate. So there's a history of Sinn Féin saying they support the Palestinian people. But in practice and in political power, it appears that the only people they are supporting are the Palestinian Authority, who I equate with the Vichy government under the Germans in France, because they carried out the German policy of pacification, to use your own word, of the French people, and that's what the PA is doing. So here in the north, and also in Shannon, you have in Shannon Airport, you have the Americans landing with their big transport planes and their troop planes. The Irish government says, well, we don't know what's in the planes. They're just refueling in Ireland. But the dogs in the street know that this is weaponry being used to murder Palestinians in the genocide that's being carried out. And then at Aldergrove here, we have an drop-off. It's the biggest transport plane in the world. I believe it's used by the Ukrainians, and they are putting in boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff into the biggest transport plane in the world to fly from Belfast, I assume, to Ukraine. Now, we do have arms manufacturers here because they used to have the shoulder, the ground, the surface, anti-aircraft missiles, and I'm not suggesting that's what's being put in them planes. But if they're coming over and loading it up and taking it back to Ukraine,
it's there.
And it is missiles.
Anti-tank missiles as well. Then,
okay, well that's perfect. So then you've got Sinn Féin in government, happy enough that Caterpillar's in West Belfast because people are getting jobs, happy enough that Invest NI and Conor Murphy is the minister responsible or being held to account for some of these military, we'll call them contracts. And that's being done under his watch. And if that's being used to kill people in Ukraine and kill people in Palestine, well, like, where's their moral integrity? Where's this group that told us for 30 years that they were anti-imperialist, that they were socialist, that they were against war and international imperialist interventions? They no longer exist. And by not coming out in public and telling us what is done in our name through these companies, then that's the obfuscation that you mentioned. It's a distraction. And this, maybe you want to talk about this, is it the extraterritorial bill, the one they're looking to bring in the Dáil, so that products from the illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank won't be sold in Ireland, and there's a whole thing around that in itself.
So that bill itself, yes, that they're fighting to not, they're doing everything in their power to keep it from being passed, for the last load of years. The issue with it is you've got the Irish government coming out and giving these, expressions of solidarity with the Palestinian people. And it's the same up here. You've got the people in Stormont, Sinn Féin, coming out and saying, we stand with the Palestinian people. But then in the same breath, they're going out and sitting in Washington with these people. They're funding these companies from America, from Britain, from the European continent, coming over and building, manufacturing and distributing weapons that then may or may not be used in genocide. More times than not, it is sent out that this stuff does find its way to Israel, to the Ukraine. It's it's basically fueling and stoking the flames of war. If we're able to sit back as normal, ordinary, working class people and see for ourselves that the world is on the edge, surely those in power can see what they're doing is helping to stoke the whole situation, pumping weapons and propping up industries such as the defense and security industry, right? I get it. People need skills. The communities need help.
You don't need to be making bombs.
But you don't need to be making
parts for planes that are dropping on
exactly.
bombs.
And I see this drip economics, see this drip down economics that they talk about.
Trickle down.
Yeah, trickle down economics.
That's how the neoliberalism all came about on austerity.
It's the biggest lot of, I'm not going to curse, but it is. It's the biggest crap. And none of the benefits aren't reaching the communities. We can watch the social fabric of our communities falling apart. People are struggling, and the only real, and it gives me hope, is seeing people coming together, organising and going and protesting these types of things. We're watching the working class coming together and different types of movement, anti-imperialist movement, pro-Palestine, coming together. We need to keep the pressure on. Again, I want to mention BDS Belfast for what they've done.
Fantastic work they do.
Amazing.
Yeah. Every day.
They went to Ulster University, and again, the academic centres are all intertwined with this industry.
Queen's is bought and paid for. You've got
Queen's, Ulsters.
Hillary Clinton is the guest or vice chancellor of Queen's University Belfast. The killer of the Oval Office, the wicked witch of the West. Like you have her, and you have I think there are research and development departments in Queen's that are heavily involved in the Israeli kind of tech industry, war manufacturing. I mean, not making things there, but the research and development.
Yeah. So the R&D base, that's what they speak of. The British speak of it. The Irish speak it in their industrial strategy. The EU speaks of it. See the R&D.
But it's research and development that creates AI. It creates the facial recognition that has the bomb hit your car when you're driving down the road.
So there's already foundations for an R&D base to be expanded upon. And that's what they see. They envisage Belfast and the North becoming a futuristic city, a futuristic plan. This is not just about, conspiracy theories about 15-minute cities. It's truth. The future is now, this is a new word, when I say futuristic cities, I mean the bringing in of AI. They're working on AI.
Macron was on about that yesterday on Twitter, how good it's going to be for everybody.
This is what,
as a globalist, he wants people to buy into that.
Yeah, so it's like it covers everything. They're utilizing AI, biometrics, and security. It's next level dystopian stuff. I never thought, and I see there are plenty of people who be rolling in their graves right now, seeing Ireland the way it is.
Well, you're just awake. Listen, see, when we were talking about things earlier on, two things come into my mind. James Connolly, leader of the Irish Citizen Army, 100%. Executed as part of the revolution in 1916. Yeah. I'm paraphrasing what he said. If you take down the butcher's apron, which is the British flag, the Union Jack, you take that down tomorrow, you put up an Irish flag, but you don't change the mechanisms of government. You're just being ruled by another elite class that comes to power. Yeah. And then the other part of that is that people like the trade unions will tell you the only reason why we have a 35-hour working week, maternity leave, paternity leave, holidays, statutory holidays, the basic minimum wage. I agree with this, is because of the fight that the people through the trade union movements have made over the years. You used to have the workhouses in Victorian times, where you're seeing more homeless people, you're seeing more food banks. You have the guys that are involved in Paul McCusker and the guys involved in, what's that project they do down at the
People's Kitchen?
The People's Kitchen. They're feeding not just homeless people, they're feeding families who can't afford to pay the rent, to pay the heating, to buy clothes for their kids.
Amazing
people who don't have cars, people who don't have holidays, people are struggling to keep their houses warm. They're doing fantastic work. If you step back and you look that we are in modern times, we still have this Victorian mentality of homelessness is accepted. The fact that people have to go to food banks, it's now just accepted. I mean, there's hundreds of them. I read an article that said there were more food banks in England than there were McDonald's. And when you start thinking about it, you think, thank God, there's McDonald's everywhere. How many food banks are there? So you touched on the elite class.
Yeah.
This is what this is. These people at the top want to keep us as worker ants, go to work, get a minimum wage, pay exorbitant utility bills when they're making exorbitant profits, then buy the latest fashion clothes, get a mortgage and have to work for the next 30 years in their system to pay off the mortgages in the banks that they own or have huge interest in. We are just a workers' collective that is there. We are, if you think of the hive and the bees, we're the drones, and you have the queen bee, and that's what the 1% are. The 1% is the queen bee. We all do the work, and they all get the honey.
Yeah, basically, I see it as subjugation. It's a subjugation of a people, and it's not through military might. It's not through, sending people to camps.
It's through the economy.
It's through economy. The devastation. Every time I speak of it, I come back to the African American communities in America at the time, especially when the Black Panthers were starting to reach their apex. Yes, their communities were targeted,
and they killed all the
systematically targeted their communities with the flooding of drugs. Not only drugs, but weapons. We are told that the Black Panthers were a terrorist organization that were planning on the overthrow of the US government, this, that, and the other. Clearly,
which probably needs overthrown.
That's another story. That's another discussion. But we know that's not true. We know the people that were part of the working class and had the best interests of the people at heart.
They weren't ever looking at equality. Exactly. They wanted to have the same place in American society.
They were carrying on the faith of Malcolm X. And it's just, it was a natural progression of that movement. But again,
and Martin Luther King.
They were cut down, but they were cut down in their prime, decapitated, like you just said, other leaders assassinated.
Once you become a threat to the state,
yes,
they're either going to blackmail you to try and get you to be on their side. They're going to put you in prison. Yeah. The way like Leonard Peltier, who's just been released after all those how many years in prison for trumped up charges and stuff.
Trumped up murder charges.
Exactly, man. And then you have on top of that, so they don't assassinate you and they can't blackmail you and put you in prison. And then the other part of that is to make you, as soon as you stand up. Now you can see that we were talking about this earlier on about like Richard Medhurst and Asa Winstanley and other people. I mean, Julian Assange is a perfect example.
As well.
Yep. So once you have a certain profile and once you start making an impact on internal domestic politics, that's when they decide to take it out of the picture. So they talk about democracy, they talk about free speech, they talk about having an opposition, a credible opposition. Yeah. But as soon as people like Palestine Action show credible opposition to government policies, you're banged up in jail. So we're not living in a democracy. We're living in a facade that tells you from when you're born, you're living in a democracy. You can change the government every 4 years. This is what democracy is. But what we're doing is electing the same cabal of people who are only in politics for self-interest. Yeah. Why would David Cameron and Rishi Sunak and people that are maybe, I think Rishi Sunak's a millionaire. Why did he want a job as the Prime Minister of Britain at £120,000 a year if it's not because of the influence that he can have in policies that promote his business interests and those of his class? Because you're right, it's a class war.
Yeah, and it goes back to what Lenin and Marx pointed out. As we progressed into advanced through the capitalist stages, we reached the level at the end, the end stages of capitalism, imperialism, that power was going to be monopolized in the hands of a few. as well as capital, and that's what we are.
As it's always been, you
As-
had the feudal system of the kings and the knights and the serfs.
And it's
That's
gradually
what we're living in today.
and that's where we are today, where this is now the pinnacle of capitalism, imperialism, and this is how it is manifesting for Ireland and for the world.
And the Israeli lobby and all that money and AIPAC,
Yes.
and British Labour Friends of Palestine, Irish Friends of Labour Friends of Israel,
yes,
Conservative Friends of Israel. You have the same here in Ireland.
It's all underhanded, very underhanded.
Well, we're going to wrap up, so I'll let you finish. What would you like to say in conclusion then?
I would just say, we need to take it serious that Ireland could be on the verge of major changes. And I mean major changes that will affect geopolitical, standing of Ireland in the world.
And our children and grandchildren.
And our children and grandchildren. Do we really envisage ourselves and our children fighting a long war in and on the continent of Europe, a world war in the coming years? Because this is what they see.
For the imperialist elite?
For the imperialist elite. Ursula von der Leyen, I'll finish up with saying, Ursula von der Leyen came out and said when she announced the strategy, the European industrial defence and security strategy, that, quote unquote, we are now turning to a war production mode. Now, when she said that, she meant that. And when they talk about Ireland being a prime location, being on the western flank, they mean
they want to protect Europe. They don't want
that's what they're saying.
They don't want a neutral Ireland because they want Ireland to be part of their war machine, so that they're not looking over their shoulder. What are the Irish going to do? Or how are they going to invade Europe through Ireland?
Well and truly, the way they see it is Ireland has one foot in, one foot out. They're afraid of influence from China, Russia, and all the rest of it. So what they really want is Ireland to be pulled completely into the fold, so it has no way of being influenced from outside sources, but they'll have total control over Irish industry
and follow their political policies going forward.
And their machinations for the future is created. Yeah, it's weird stuff. So it is.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for watching and listening. And I didn't put up, please subscribe, please like. But Ger Dinan is the Solidarity Activist Network, and I am the Independent Activist. So please follow us on Substack and all social media platforms and YouTube. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Bye.